What's up, guys? And thank you for joining us for this kind of extra special, holiday special, you could say, blog developer update, however you want to refer to it, where we are joined by the wonderful Matt, or you may know them as Martha Stewart from the Rhino team, who is, well, they're going to explain their main job to you in a minute because I'm going to probably butcher it, but it's along the lines of they work with the visual effects, the kind of the flashy effects you see when you drop an enchantment, when you play your favorite card. There's a good chance that this man here is behind that effect that you are seeing. So, Matt, why don't you introduce yourself to the Mythgardians and just kind of explain exactly what it is you do at Team Rhino.
Okay, thanks, Woody, for that introduction. And so, yeah, I'm Matt. I primarily do most of the gameplay VFX. A lot of the board VFX. There's also another guy, Johnny, who is Halo Sign. He does what we call technical art. So he hooks up a lot of things, triggers, stuff like that. And he does some of the animation. And he does some effects. So he's primarily focused on the UI effects. I don't really touch any of the UI effects because my list gets pretty long on the gameplay. So, I mean, think about how many cards we put out for each update. You know, there could be, 130 or 150 cards. So then my responsibility is to create effects for each of those cards. And a lot of the path effects. So Johnny might hook up the paths so that they run, kind of build those out. Then I'll attach effects to them. He might put effects on stuff, and then I'll go and make another pass on them. We also do the faction menu effects, and so Johnny will animate those, and then I'll add effects on them or revise his effects that he's done on them. So I do that, and I do the audio. So I hook up the audio. Sometimes I'll make audio. So metamorphosis, that's my audio skill there, the echo bah that I did in GarageBand.
Nice.
So anyway, but we have a third party that also does the audio that creates most of the SFX and VO, and then I work with them, and then I hook them up, and so I kind of do a couple different roles, and once we got Noah on board, I kind of backed off on the bugs, but I was kind of taking care of that. So I do a little bit of everything, and I can animate and stuff, but we just can't do it all, and Johnny's there, and we've got a lot of talented people that can wear a couple different hats.
Nice. Very, very, very nice. So, I mean, any card game in general, right? It's VFX are kind of a big part of the game because you haven't got that moment-to-moment action gameplay other video games bring you. VFX are very much a way, right, to immerse you and bring you into the experience. I mean, people even refer to it as, like, some people will say they don't like this card game because the VFX in it, or the visual animations of it, or even the visual style of it. Like, I've openly said many times, I'm not a Hearthstone fan because I just don't like the way it looks, and that's my personal opinion. So the VFX in Mythgard, how early on, obviously the gods and the myths and the beasts and all that were obviously part of the story from the very early point. How the VFX in Mythgard, what exactly is it that the kind of tone you're trying to capture? Is it always given to you, or are you kind of given this free rein of saying, hey, look, we've got this dark tone, you go do what you want to
do? It's a little bit of both. I mean, I'm really lucky. Like, what's great about being a VFX artist on this project is that I have concept art in front of me that a lot of times has its own VFX in the art. So that is for any artist, especially, like whether you're a modeler, whether you're an environment artist, and especially, like you very rarely get concept art for VFX. You get concept art for characters, you get concept art for environments. So what really turned me on about getting in on this project was that I got to basically get a reference point for how to start my VFX visually. And then, the lore and everything like that kind of feeds into that. So it's a little bit of both. The designers, Nikolai and Peter, and sometimes Chris, they kind of feed the ideas and kind of get me pointed in the right direction, either technically or what they want to see visually. And whereas I would kind of jump in, as an artists tend to do, and you want to just go nuts. So lots of VFX, lots of stuff happening. And I kind of tended to do that a little bit in the beginning of the project. So like say, I wrote about Stretcher earlier on, and I kind of, laid it out for the players, how I went through that process. And what ended up happening with that is, on a design side of things, it wasn't as successful, but visually it was successful. So Nikolai, he has some good points when he brings up that if you got too much going on visually with VFX, like I play Overwatch, so Overwatch is one of those things where you can't tell what's going on, right? Because there's so many, but I still play it and I love it because I like, first person shooters, and I like, visual effects. And the style's okay, but the point that Nikolai had to kind of, step back from that tangent is, if you have too much going on when you're playing the game, and some people are playing rapidly, like I don't play as rapidly as some people, it gets a little confusing. It gets to be too much. You're kind of losing the subtlety of the way Mythgard kind of goes back and forth. It's not, you're not like play a spell or play a character and have their special ability just take over the board, because then that's kind of what was happening with Stretcher, especially if you had multiple artifacts of Stretcher, just boom, 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 and you'd have to wait. And so people pushed back on that, but they liked it. So we had to kind of find a balance. And so I started to kind of step back a little bit visually in these big impactful things, and just kind of try to focus, kind of to hone it in a bit, or to integrate it into, while the effects going on, the gameplay is happening at the same time. So it's this, it's kind of also a mishmash, of me just free reign, and then having some constraints set on me so that I'm not, going overboard with the visuals, so that players are just like overwhelmed and they can't tell what's going on. And you still, in some instances, that'll happen, where, it's just a bit too much. And then we have to figure out either how to redesign it, or have to figure out timing of that or something like that. And then, we can try to find that balance. But it's always, every game too, it's never done. It's always an ongoing process. And what's cool about this is that with every faction that we come out with, or not every faction, but every update we come out with new cards, I get to kind of discover and experiment. And a lot of times we even get some new artists that are doing the card art, so I get some new inspiration on style and how to approach it. So for me as a VFX artist, it's really fun to be able to just like have all this access to basically what's the word I'm looking for, where I'm influenced and I can't even think of the word. Anyway, I just get a lot of input from other sources that make my job much easier.
Nice. Yeah, so you kind of hit, well, you touched on this, but I suppose to make it a bit more explicit for my kind of simple mind, yeah. When you so let's say you're given a set of 10 cards to work on, how much of it is a case of, are there some cards you look at visually and you think, okay, I want to do these VFX, I want to do this gameplay effects very lore focused. I want them to kind of maybe a nod to the lore. Maybe those people who know the ins and outs of Mythgard's lore are going to go, oh, that interaction with this. Or is there a kind of a kind of ego side where you're like, hey, look, I found this really cool effect I found out recently where just everything, just particle effects everywhere. I'm just going to show off with particle effects. Like, how much of that weighs up? Because obviously there's a time when you want to not so much show off, but you want to really kind of make something flashy and nice and stands out, right? And you go, oh, that's pretty. Like you said, Overwatch is key for that. Like I always watch the esports league and think, how on earth does anyone cast on this? Because it's just nuts. Like, it's crazy how it goes on. Like, It's like a full Sky Sports production when they cast it. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, they are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how much of it is, because there are some card visual effects that kind of are almost lore focused or play into the lore that may be more subtle, and there are some that are a bit more flashy. Like you said, Stretcher is quite I don't want to say flashy, but it is a lot more bang in your face, right? You can't miss that animation compared to something like Hydra when you play that and you kind of get a little kind of like triple effect, kind of almost all 3D almost effect happening off the card. So how much kind of weighs up there between being flashy and then being like lore focused with the effects?
Yeah, well, I think depending on like how big the effect is or how big the ability is or how big the spell is, I might push it visually a little bit more because something like Gigantomachia, right? It's going to affect a lot of tokens on the board at once.
Yep.
The lore doesn't really play into it as much because I looked at the machine gun, and so that was kind of like, okay, the lore is really interesting on this one, but then you've got this hybrid of modern machine gun, right? And so it's like it was like a no-brainer on me. It's like, okay, it affects a lot of tokens on the board, and I just need to go with the visual effect on that, Whereas something like something really subtle, like say Cairnhenge, right? So you lay that down, and the lore to me was really impactful in my decision making on that because of the icons on the cairns, and I've made a couple revisions on them, but the last revision was the little icons glow then float up and out to try to match what's happening around the mountain and kind of what's happening with the lore. And so I just kind of put the visual and the lore together on that one. So it kind of depends on the ability or the effect. And sometimes I want just subtle, or it requires just subtle, especially if it's an enchantment, because that if you have constant things going on in enchantment, and we got feedback on this in the beginning, then it just gets distracting,
Yeah.
So there's all these little decisions made on something that's functional, something that's visual, that is going to be enjoyable, something that matches the lore and the faction and the art style. And sometimes I get so busy with 130 cards I'm doing that I have to put something down really quick, and I go back to it and try to refine it. Like I'm always refining them, I'm always updating them, and but like my first passes, I just get them in.
Yeah.
And fortunately, after 4 or 5 factions have been made, I have set up VFX where I can just plop them in. And you've seen stand-in VFX in the game as we're going, before release, and so that way I can just get things done, and then I go back and revise, and then I have time to really think about it. Nice. But a lot of times I'm so overwhelmed, I'm just get them in.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Yeah. So a kind of a two-part question now, for you say, and this is going to put you on the spot maybe a little bit, so apologies for that. But what's your favorite card you've worked on? So not so much maybe from a kind of a visual effects point of view, from your work point of view, a card that you've put on there, you've put out, and you think, I'm super happy with that. Like I'm really happy with how that's come out.
Yeah, well, there's a few because there's so many, but
course,
the ones that I've some of them that I've enjoyed the most are Stretcher, because I could animate and do visual effects. Metamorphosis, because it was kind of silly and I did the audio for that, and it's just fun and easy.
Yeah.
Dora, nice. Seal of Exile, and a lot of these kind of, because I just on this project started working with Unity, so it allowed me to learn Unity while I was creating these. Stone Mother, because it's real simple, but it's just, I don't know what it is about Stone Mother, just the rocks around your that you're protecting. It's just super simple, but I really liked it. Defy Death, that log just cartoony thing.
Yeah, cool.
Rogue Odilon. And then on the subtle end of things, there's like just, like some of the enchantments, like Field of Poppies, Temple of Delphi, Rusan's bite where it's just you just get to do these little subtle little things that aren't really labor extensive, but it just allows you just to kind of finesse something real simple, and it's not overdone. It's just, oh, that looks nice on the board, and you get a little bit of an animation. Those are, for some reason, to me, those are super satisfying enchantments, and when I hit one that's successful, it's just like, oh, God, that, because you want to see the original art, come to life, and so I get a little bit of that, where I can make this come to light a little bit, or life a little bit in it, and I don't know, it's just, those are kind of fun too. I really like some of the enchantment stuff.
Okay. I was gonna say, I completely get it. I played a game the other day, and someone played Full of Poppies, and it's been so long since I actually saw that card played. It just, I don't know why. Maybe I just haven't come across the matchups with it, and I was just like, that looks really nice. Like, and I remember it just stood out to me. Like some enchantments, I mean, all the enchantments look lovely. I love the desert. I know there's not actual visual effects in it, but I just love the way it has that kind of panoramic scape across the whole board. It's just like engulfs it. But there are some enchantments just come out, and like you said, Full of Poppies is so subtle, but it's just so pretty, and it's just so like, that really works. And that's one of the things, especially what I've been doing for the team in terms of the outreach. A lot of people I speak to, one of the first things that jumps out to them is how visually striking the enchantments are. That is one thing they straight away say, is because I suppose not many card games capitalize on that real estate space, right? There's a whole real estate space on that board. So show off some art that stays there with some real nice visual effects, and it's Field of Poppies, an example you said that come to my mind when I thought about my match the other day. But yeah, the some of the enchantments, as you said, are just stunning. They just, you said, as rightly said, they're subtle because you don't want it in your face. You don't want disco lights. I mean, don't get me wrong. Many people know I love 80s neon, but I don't want like some neon leg warmers just glowing every 2 seconds on the board. Like, it would be great at first and I'd laugh, but after 100 games you'd be like, can I just turn this thing off now, please?
Exactly. Fields of Poppies, interesting. A side note on that is, so I had worked with a couple of guys in the past, but I hadn't worked in Unity, so they wanted to give me a test, and so I did Field of Poppies as a test. So that was my very first VFX for Mythgard.
Very nice.
And then, obviously went back to it and kind of refined it a little bit. But yeah, it was just, I was like, oh my God, I love this one. I'm just going to do this one. And it got me the job.
There you go. So yeah, Field of Poppies is a big one. I'm saying, it's nice. That's it. It's where it all started. That's the seed. Nice. So we speak about your favourite card from a visual effects point of view that you designed. You mentioned before you played a game, obviously being a developer, being in the game and actually playing actively. What's your favourite card to play? This is something I just like asking developers, and then we're getting our idea of it. If it's not Hydra, we're going to have issues, but don't worry, I won't hold it against you. But what's your favourite card to play? Do you have a card that stands out and you like not auto include every deck, but you always kind of steer towards it?
Metamorphosis and Hoarding Hero, because they're just so satisfying. I don't know. They're just, the visuals are kind of fun, and I love just laying down a Metamorphosis. I'm not a very good player, by the way, but that's probably why I like them, because it's like, someone puts something pretty menacing on the board and I'm like, oh crap, but I have a Metamorphosis, and it just feels so good. And then Hoarding Hero, when you just like load it up with a bunch of items, and it just grows, and then there's been a handful of times where people just concede after you load it up, and it's just it's kind of cruel, but it's satisfying.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I completely get what Hoarding Hero. When I first started playing the game, well over a year ago now, it's one of the cards that I always used to play, and very much as a meme deck. And the idea being that most good players have an answer for it, because most good players not always play control, but they play an element of control in their deck. But when they didn't find it, when they couldn't find that card that answered it, and you would just be like, I'm going to put another item on you, and another one, and another one, and it was like a Jenga tower. It was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was just like, this is gonna just cause absolute havoc in it. And then you drop something that gives it overrun, and you wait for the escape enter, and it's a great feeling. It is an absolute great feeling.
And the best feeling I get with it is when I beat Chris one time, because he always beats me when we're doing testing and stuff. And I beat him with a Horden hero, and he conceded, and it was like, yes, I beat him. And I never do.
Nice, that's it. Never play the deck again. Unbeaten. Unbeaten. From that one game, it was unbeaten. So obviously we know there's an expansion coming in January. We deliberately, a lot of the community don't know tons about the expansion. They don't know the themes of the expansion fully yet. All that's going to be shared with people in January. So obviously your hands are tied a little bit here on what you can share and what you can say. But going forwards, how's the VFX kind of, I suppose starting off with, how's the VFX been for this expansion? Has it given, do you feel like there's been an opportunity to really showcase some new VFX that you've not yet played with in the game?
Yeah, there's a couple of them that I've kind of gone in a couple different directions. Right now I'm in the kind of the second pass phase. So what happens is that so the process is, they design them out. So they spend a couple weeks designing them out. And then we have a sheet that kind of is the game board sheet that plots out all of the design elements. And then we tick off what phase is done, the design, the engineering, the VFX, the audio, and then art framed, which means that the final or close to final art is in the token. So I'm kind of, VFX and audio is somewhat in the last part of that process. So what I do is, as Chris and Peter are hooking up the engineering, and sometimes Nikolai, I'm plugging in first pass VFX right away so I don't get slammed at the end. So right now, I am going through my second pass as final art gets put into the game in the editor internally. I am now doing my second pass, and that's kind of the most enjoyable part of it, because now I can really focus on the final art, and I can focus on how I want to present the VFX, how I can, support the art, support the gameplay. And it's a back and forth process. I'm not sitting here, even though I am isolated because we're remote, but I'm getting feedback,
Yeah.
and if I put, especially in how the abilities work. So so it's kind of funny. So you've got the visuals of the art, and then how the ability works, and it's been designed and engineered. And then I am working with the engineers and the designers, how they want it to look or how I think it should look. And then I start kind of fine-tuning the visuals. So because of just the nature of those card abilities and the tech of them, it really drives my visuals too, in a way. So it sounds limiting, but it's not. It's actually, I have an answer. I can now approach it and go in the direction that I want to, and then start fine-tuning the visuals. So really what drives, a different look on a VFX on a new set of cards is their abilities, in my opinion, what they're going to do and how they're going to function and how you're going to interact with them. And, well, there's a list of things that can change with a new set of cards.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, you mentioned you pretty much cover all visual effects for the game mostly, being cards, boards, and paths. Is there any preference on any of those? Like, do you prefer working on a new card, on a new path, or a new board? Is there anywhere that you think? I mean, yeah, any one of those where someone gets in touch and says, "Hey, look, we got this new board idea," and you're like, "Yes, I love working on a board," or I love working on a path, or maybe, like I said, it is just a new card.
Yeah, probably the most satisfying visually for me, as a VFX artist, is probably doing the faction menus. So doing the VFX for those are, because I get to kind of bump them up a bit, and they kind of take over, and it's kind of like I said with the enchantments, where you get to make the art come alive a little bit, and so since it's like slowed down and you can take time to look at it and look at the card art and then try to match some visuals. Now I don't do every single VFX for those factions, Johnny will do some of those.
Yeah.
But most of them I'll do, or at least do a pass on them. And then I like also doing some of the ones that are token based, that are like projectiles or firing on something. Those are kind of fun to do, to see if I can pull off with cards and tokens. It's kind of,
Yep.
It's a weird thing. You're so those are kind of fun technically and visually to try to pull off. Some obviously have been successful, some not as successful, but those are really fun. And then, like I said, the enchantments I really enjoy too.
Nice.
Because they're kind of like the faction minis.
Yeah, no, they are. And as I said, enchantments definitely feel not wholly unique to Mythgard, but they definitely feel like have a place in Mythgard in terms of the way the board's set up, and they definitely feel like it was one of the first things you notice when you stream it or when you're playing it. If someone's watching you, one of the first things they are is, what's that on the board? Like, what's that thing just sat there? And you explain, oh, it manipulates this lane. Oh, that's really cool. Or they stop by and you're playing deserts, and they're just like, why is your board like a desert? It's just like, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
no.
see, I love that desert. You brought up the desert, and as it spreads out across the board, it's like one of my favorite things. And I didn't even do that. That's basically coding. And I didn't really want to put any VFX on the desert because of that, kind of effect that is just happens, because if you have, plus it was technically kind of weird too. Like, how do you connect the VFX up, which we didn't really, it was kind of a challenge technically. So we just figured, they just have this subtle thing that happens, and, so they just grow, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and connecting the desert is great, and I like how it's one single picture. Like, you miss one in the middle, and you want to find it. You're like, I need to fill this desert. I just have to do it. Like, but no, they are great, and like you said, it's not always about being big and flashy. That's what Overwatch is for, right? That's what you're saying. Like, if you want, I mean, I play quite a lot of Destiny, and just. It feels like Bungie just love particle effects. Like, any time when there's like new comes in the game, it's just like, I can't see anything. My screen's blue with particle effects. Like, it's just, yeah, my computer's like it's trying to render
Destiny,
everything in real time.
Destiny, I like crank it down a bit so I can see what's going on.
Yeah.
But then I worked on Marvel Heroes, and that was another one that was just crazy. There were so many particles on the board, you couldn't even see your character.
It's crazy. Well, I do get it. I mean, I've done very basic, like, to do what I do. I basically took like a 6-week course to make a very basic video game, because I was like, hey, I'm talking to developers. I should understand the basics of what actually they do. And I remember at the end of the course, it was this fun little lesson, which was like particle effects. And it was like, when you roll the ball past the finish line, have some particle effects come out. And that's probably the longest I spent in Unity, was when I realised that I could make all these fancy explosions. I was like, this is amazing. Like,
isn't it fun?
So I spent so much time with particle effects, and then putting like mask boxes around it to make them bounce off invisible walls. And I was like, this is brilliant. Like, so I get why people like particle effects. But
oh god, it's fun. I highly recommend it. Yeah, you just and then you get like, like you've got all these people in the background doing the coding and the designing and the engineers, and you come in and you just go, ooh, here's a fireball, and everyone goes, oh my god.
Yeah. I can imagine so.
It took you like, half hour.
Yeah.
You get all the credit.
I can imagine.
I'm just teasing.
I can imagine so. But no, it's I think everyone watching will completely agree when I say that, obviously, as you said many times, it's not just you that does the visual effects. Johnny as well, and a couple of user third parties as well to help out some of the audio stuff. But the visual effects in Mythgard have got better and better and better as it's kind of gone on and on. And they're just so nice. They are very versatile. Like you said, you've got more kind of intrusive ones, I'll say, as Stretcher, in terms of it is just bang across, smashing your face. Or even Centrifuge is a little bit kind of obvious, throwing it across to the deck, and I love it when they top deck a Centrifuge after you've just played it. That's the best feeling ever. All the way down to something, as you said earlier, a Field of Poppies, which is a lot more subtle and very, very pretty, or even something like the Desert. So I think everyone will agree with me and join me when I say, like, a massive thank you for all the hard work that you do on Mythgard, not just you, Johnny, as well, and everyone else involved with the visual effects, as well as obviously the whole team. But I'm just going to wrap up this little kind of tasty holiday treat for you guys. It was an absolute pleasure sitting down and catching up with Matt again. You may know them as Martha Stewart if you're part of the Discord, or if you connect with the Rhino team on social media at all. And I'm sure you're extremely busy at the moment because there is an expansion coming in about 3 to 4 weeks time. So it's no doubt you're pretty busy. I know I'm looking forward to it. I know everyone else is looking forward to it as well. So thank you very much, Matt, for giving up your time to chat to me.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me. It was really enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. And thank you for all your work you've been doing to help us out, and everybody out there for playing us and supporting us. And it's really a fun community, and it's really enjoyable to work on this game with everybody involved.
No, definitely, absolutely, and the community is wonderful. I've been part of many card game communities, played many card games, and Mythgard it's such a lovely community everywhere I look, basically. So yeah, as I'm going to echo what Matt said and be cheeky and jump off the back of words and just say thank you again to you guys. So this will probably be the last time you have any contact or communication with myself or with anyone from the team from Team Rhino before Christmas. So I think everyone's going to join me when they say we hope you all have a wonderful holiday period, however you choose to celebrate it. Have fun, stay safe, and we look forward to bringing you lots and lots of tasty information, content, and gameplay in the new year. Until then, take care and goodbye.
Goodbye. Cheers.